Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast. It is Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. This is our evening live show. Thank you for those of you tuning in, although I just saw two people leave. That's reassuring. Thank you very much. Tonight, if you've seen the title, you probably are wondering what's going on. Well, tonight is going to be story time. Yes, I only have one topic, one story, and the reason I'm doing it this way is a lot of times when I talk about something that happened, I usually don't give all the details, and I always have to go back, backtrack, tell you what happened. So tonight I'm thinking I'm going to try to tell you an entire story from start to finish, but it's not finished, but at least through the part of the story that this is titled, It's Always DNS, or Is It? So I'm going to try to do the entire background on that, and we'll see how it goes. Feel free to chime in and ask your questions, make your comments. Some of you are going to judge me, whatever. But that's how it's going to go tonight. Mr. Weiss, hello, sir. Thank you for tuning in. Little bit of housekeeping before we get started. I did a couple of things today, which I think you guys may want to know about. I signed up and got my hotel for ASCII Edge in Orlando next week. That is happening on March 26th and 27th, Wednesday and Thursday. So it is official. I will be there. I will be packing up my gear, testing that podcast camera on Saturday to make sure that it works. And I got to do a little extra packing because I'm actually going up on Tuesday because I have a client that is moving at the end of this month. So I'm going to go up early on Tuesday. We're doing the first part of their internet test. They're getting an SD-WAN connection installed at the new office. We got to test the circuit. Windstream is going to install all their equipment. I'm going to bring my networking equipment. I'm bringing in a new firewall, which we're going to go ahead and connect on that day. Then I'm going to spend my 2 days at ASCII. And then once ASCII's over, Friday is when we go back. We actually do the turn up cutover of their internet Friday morning. And then I'll go back to their old office, help them pack up computers and stuff. They will actually be moving on Saturday, and I will be there Saturday afternoon, most likely Sunday, hopefully not Monday, but I actually have a trip scheduled where I will be staying at least through Monday, hopefully not Tuesday. So they plan to be live on the 31st, which is that following Monday. So it just happened to work out that ASCII, client move, all in the same time frame, so I'm not making all these trips back and forth to Orlando. Yeah, this will be probably my fourth or fifth trip to Orlando since the end of January. That quite interesting. So that is happening. I also got signed up officially. Well, it actually happened yesterday, but I got the notice this morning that I am set for PAX 8 Beyond. That is happening this June. I'll tell you more about that later, but I will be there and I will be on Media Row at PAX 8 Beyond at the lovely Gaylord Resorts. So that is a go. I will be talking to Sean, the Summer Man Lardo, tomorrow. And we're going to see if any of my negotiations are being taken seriously for some upgrade in the steak knives and some other stuff for IT Nation and their Pitch It program. We are back on track to do the vendor profiles for Pitch It 2026. And it looks like I will be attending IT Nation Connect in May or June, whenever it is, and then IT Nation Secure, which is when they will have the final presentations and select the Pitch It winner. And we're hoping to get a very nice set of steak knives and maybe get me on stage to give out the presentation. We'll see if that happens. I'll talk to the Summer Man tomorrow. Let's see. Before I get on to the DNS story, let me go ahead and say a big thank you to our premier partner, NetAlly. They are basically the main presenter of this podcast. They've been so for many years. They will probably continue to be so. I ended up using my tools today just to give you an idea of the NetAlly suite of tools. I'm actually almost set to do the videos, but today I ended up using my little link sprinter. It's the little handheld tool that just fits in your pocket. Funny enough, the batteries on it had died, but because it is a PoE powered device, the client that I was at is PoE, plugged it in. They wanted to check and see I don't know how to describe it. It's a client that's in the port and they take care of crewmen that come in off of the cruise lines and the cargo ships. A lot of them are international folks that can't be allowed out in public outside of the port, but they need a place to get to off the ship where they can go get some food, stretch their legs, play some games. It's a little house is what it is. And they have a chapel there, and they have this thing called a quiet room, which I didn't know it was called the quiet room because when we set everything up, it was all empty and stuff. And I've only been there a handful of times, but they wanted to know if there was internet in the quiet room. And I'm like, if there's jacks in there, then yes, there is. But they're like, well, somebody said it didn't work. And so I walked over with my little link sprinter, got a cable, plugged it in, bing, 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 bing. Lights went green. Got an email on my phone that said all the connections are good. I'm like, yeah, you're good to go. So took less than a minute to test the two jacks and show them that they were good. So that is my testimonial for the NetAlly link sprinter. Get network verification in as little as 10 seconds. And I'll say thank you to the other sponsors a little bit later. Let's see, what else do I want to get in terms of housekeeping before we go? Actually, you know what? Let me do this. I mentioned ASCII Edge, so I have the little flyer here. They already had their first one last month in Costa Mesa. I heard it was fantastic. I heard Giles was great on stage. I'll get to see her next week. And if you are watching this and you're not caught up on the audios, last night and this morning, I released a very special ASCII preview. It is actually episode 788, and it is the keynote for this year's ASCII Edge. Jesse Tuttle, one of the FBI's and Interpol's most wanted. So I got a chat with him and get a little preview of what he's going to talk about, a little bit of his history. And you will want to go and take a listen to that. There is a video that is accompanying that as well, but you'll want to go hear his story if you're not going to be attending any of the ASCII Edge events. So that's out of the way. That's out of the way. Let's that over there. That's good. So, story time. So, I first need to clarify that this is not one of my regular clients. Let's start with that. This was a referral from an old client that had gone to another place. I won't get into that side of the story, but he called me and said he had a business that needed my help. They had an IT person that had kind of basically screwed them over, and they were having issues. Network was failing. They couldn't figure stuff out. And he convinced them that they needed somebody to come in and troubleshoot them who was a real IT person, and that they were going to have to spend real money to get things fixed. And I went and visited them. I won't tell you how long ago, but let's just say I went. It was a while back that I went, met with them. And after a couple of trips, I had to tell them, look, you need a new network. You've got a 2012 server that probably is dying. You have switches that are just old and crusty. I mean, when I say crusty, these switches look like they had water spilled on them and they were corroded. They had a spaghetti room of cables. And when I say room, I should probably be more specific because they didn't have a server room. They didn't have a server closet. They have cables on the wall in the middle of their back office room, which is half used for their graphics department and half used for storage. And then around the corners, there are accounting people. And then there's a fridge because people come back there to get their lunch. There's no break room, so people just kind of eat wherever. And that's where all of their networking equipment is. And it's on one of those Home Depot racks that you buy and set up, the little metal racks. So they've got several battery backups on the bottom, and then they've got their server. And actually, for the age of the server, and I'm going to say it's probably in the 12 to 14 year range, pretty nice server. HP rack mount server. I forget the model, but I don't care. But it is 2012. It was set up nicely. And then behind that are probably 5 external USB hard drives that they connected because they ran out of space on the server. And rather than doing any real upgrades or bringing in some real storage server appliance, they just thought, well, we'll just put things on an external USB drive, and the previous tech would mount them in the 2012 server. So they showed up as shared drives, but they were external USB drives, 5 of them. They had that. They had their TV monitor kind of hanging in the rack. And I say TV monitor because it literally was like a 15-inch monitor that came from a POS system or something. That's what they were using as their server monitor. They've got 1 patch panel on the wall for their network. The phone people decided that they would also mount their 66 block there because they still have those kind of phones. Their camera person has a separate patch panel for their cameras. And then their Comcast connection, yes, I said Comcast, is there, but it's actually an extension of the DMARC, which is in the front of their store, because you got to go up like 20 feet to the ceiling and through the front of the store. And the internet and Wi-Fi sits above a bathroom that if you were to go into an old style body shop, you know, or the ones where it's really a warehouse and they have the fake office in the front and then the bathroom is all the way in the back and it is a like nasty indoor outhouse. That's the bathroom for this store, and that's where their Wi-Fi and internet connection comes in. And I'm just going through all of this to give you the ideal picture of this client so that you understand what I'm dealing with. Now, if this had been a customer that had just called me out of the blue and said, hey, can you help us out? I would be like, no, not a chance. No. But they were a client referral. And I said, you know what? I'll do you a solid. So we got them to talk about doing this network upgrade. So we're upgrading them to a 2022 HP server. We are installing a Synology NAS for their file servers because with all of those external drives, they actually have about 30 terabytes of data that they are both using in active and archive storage. So I wanted to get rid of those. So we've got an HP server. We've got a Synology NAS. We're also quoting them a new 48-port switch and a 24-port switch so that they can utilize their Wi-Fi the correct way with a PoE. And in the future, when they decide to switch over to a VoIP system, they've got that in place. So all of that was great. Owner signed off on it. And then the owner decided, yeah, I'm going to move to Carolina and you'll have to work through my office manager and take care of everything with her. Now, this wasn't as big a deal as I thought it was going to be if we had been allowed to come in and do a lot of stuff at the right time. And when I say the right time is in order to, swap out a 48 and a 24 port switch, in order to swap out some other stuff, we needed some downtime. And that's one of the few times where we would normally come in on a weekend, Friday night, Saturday, swap everything over, do all of that, blah, blah, blah. And I really needed that because of the spaghetti mess that the cables are coming down the wall. And these are a combination of 5, 7, 10-foot cables that are just kind of, you've seen these types of rooms, and they're going behind the rack and they're intertwined with these power cables that are coming from the USB backups, that are coming from other devices on the network, the switches above that belong to the camera system. Just a mess. And I know I'm going to need time to, play that unravel game. So we need to do this after hours. So to them, they really don't have after hours because they don't start. It's a retail store. See, I did it already. I didn't give you all the full details up front. So it's a retail store. So they normally work from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. So I'm like, okay, can I come in 9 to 10? No, nobody will come in early. Okay, is there a day off? No, there isn't. Now, when the owner was here and I met with them, they were taking Mondays off. It's the type of store where they're Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, some business. The weekends, they're hot. So Mondays used to be a great day, but then the owner decided to go back to 7 days and then go to Carolina. And now I'm stuck dealing with this office manager who won't come in early or leave late or give me a key or anything like that. So we're stuck in this limbo period of time. And a lot of this limbo period of time started when those storms, that hurricane came through Carolina, because the owner lives in that Boone area where a lot of stuff, got washed away and people lost homes. Now, they did not. They're good. They didn't have power for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, but they're okay. But he's not here. And I can only work so much with the office manager, who won't come in early or leave late or allow anybody else to let us in or do all of these things. So I tell you that to tell you this. We're, I don't know, 80% done with the network. I've got the new server installed. I've got the Synology installed. I've not done the transfer of server roles yet because I want to put in the new switch. I want to put in the other new switch, because they're in 2 different locations. No big deal for you. So the first thing that happens is they have a firewall that died. Okay, not a problem. We do firewalls all the time. I've got a sonic wall here. Let's get you that. No, too expensive, and we don't need all the security, blah, blah, blah. Like, you need to have something. You've got to have a firewall. My backup years ago used to be Arachnus from the Snap AV family. So those of you that were listening to this show back when it was Podnuts Pro, remember Snap AV, which originally was IL8, and the Arachnus set of products. So I still had in my possession, even though I had I shouldn't say given, I sold about 13 Arachnus switches to a good friend of ours in the channel here. But I still had some switches that I got back, and I had an Arachnus 310 firewall. I had 2 of their AN700 Wi-Fis. So this client, being price sensitive as they were, I'm like, okay, I will do this. So I installed the Arachnus firewall. Now, remember that I said this is not a managed client, and this was going to be basically a one-off project. So we installed the Arachnus firewall, get them up and running. They're happy. All I have in terms of remote access is the oversee client, so that I can at least see the firewall and do some stuff there. And I have RMM on the new server that we put in, so that I can at least do some stuff remotely, and worst case scenarios, I can RDP or do whatever to the other stations. So the firewall goes in, everything's fine. They have a network outage and they call Comcast. So Comcast comes there and does all of the resetting of the modems, actually even replaces the modem, but they can't browse. And they call and I say, well, Comcast is working because I can get to the firewall, and inside the Arachnus firewall, I've got the diagnostic tools where you can do pings and you can, browse internet or not browse internet, but you can do a ping both to IP addresses and you can ping to a DNS address. And those were resolving. And I could ping to local devices on the network by IP address. I couldn't ping by DNS for local stuff. So I tell them, I said, well, the firewall's working, Comcast is working. It must be something with your server. And they're like, okay. So I go over there and their old server is not functioning. So I have to restart it and I have to reset DNS. This time it was DNS. For some reason, all of the root hints were not working and they didn't have any forwarding addresses in their DNS, blah, blah, blah. So I get DNS up, reset all the routes, they're browsing the internet, and they're good to go. I tell you this with this time frame in mind. This was about a month ago. So on Saturday, I get an alert from my RMM on the server and my oversee that they're down. And I'm like, oh. So I go in and I go into oversee. I try to get to the firewall. I can get in, I can ping, I can do all the stuff. I know exactly what it is. It's got to be the server, got to be the DNS again. So this past Saturday, I call them and I say, hey, are you guys having issues? And they're like, yeah, we've been down for a while. Comcast is coming out to replace the modem. I said, do you remember a month ago when I was there and they did that and it did not work? I can tell you, I know what it is. It's not going to be the Comcast. Well, we don't have authorization for you to come here. And I said, but I know that I can fix your problem. I know that Comcast is not going to fix your problem. So you mean to tell me that you want to be without internet for another day or two, only to find out that I could have fixed your problem? Well, we don't have authorization for you to come here. Okay, fine. So Sunday, and I don't know where on God's green earth Comcast has ever done an appointment on a Sunday, but they do. They go to the client. They do all their stuff. They replace the modem. There is no browsing of the internet. It's Sunday. I am not answering the phone. And when I say not answering the phone, I don't even have to hear the phone because my phone system doesn't ring. It goes straight to voicemail. So they leave the frantic message. Hi, Comcast is here. They've changed out the modem. They're getting internet, so they say that it's something on your end. We need you to get out here ASAP. We have authorization for you to come. I'm not getting that message till Monday morning. So Monday morning comes around. I call and say, so tell me what the issue is. And they're like, well, Comcast came, changed out the modem. Things aren't working. They say it's on your end. I said, I told you that on Saturday, didn't I? Yes, you did. But can you please come fix this? Blah, blah, blah. So I go and I do all the same stuff that I did last time. Only this time doesn't work. And I am lost because I have all my NetAlly tools with me. I'm plugging them in and I can see that they're getting an IP address from the DHCP server. They're getting the DNS information. They are not able to browse. And I'm like, this is odd. I go into the server some more. I look around. DNS is not doing that query resolve. It's passing on the first one, but failing on the second one. And I'm like, okay, I can't go ahead and do the switch that I wanted to do because I thought this would be the perfect time to go ahead and transfer all the roles and get them over onto the new network. If I had thought ahead, I would have brought the switches over. We could have done all that out because they're down. Perfect time, but I didn't do that. Instead, I'm trying to figure out, I can't get the new server roles installed because it can't contact the domain controller to get set up. So I got to fix the old server first. And I'm playing with DNS. And I decide, you know what? This DNS is crap anyway. And when I say crap, the old IT person had used their server to house a whole bunch of internet sites for his other friends or clients. They had multiple DNS entries for multiple networks that they were doing. I'm like, you know what? This doesn't need to be here anyway. I'll just blow it out. So I delete everything. I remove DNS. I bring back DNS. Everything is up and running the way it's supposed to on DNS. Still not resolving. The network icon is just not coming on in the lower right-hand corner. But DNS is doing what it should be. It's passing both query tests. I just can't get out to the internet, and I can't figure out for the life of me what's going on. Maybe it's the network card. So I go into network properties. I change adapters because on those HP servers, it's got 4 internal NICs. So I disable the one, take out all the IP information, put it on another one, and connection comes up, and it looks like it's going to work for about 20 seconds and then goes down. I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. So I spend, I don't know, 2 hours there going through all this. And I get into the firewall again and I'm doing all the tests there. And the firewall's pinging out, the firewall's pinging in. I'm changing DNS information on the firewall. I'm throwing in public Google stuff. I'm throwing in quad 9s. I'm throwing in Comcast 7576. I'm doing the ones. I'm doing everything. Nothing's working. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And so it finally dawns on me that I'm like, you know what? It's probably the firewall. That's the only thing I can think of. And that was my last resort. I'm not spending all day trying to figure out this issue. So I had a backup of the config, blow out the firewall, restore the backup, boom, everything works. So that's where we were. For once, it was not DNS. Now, before some of you sit there and say, well, you shouldn't have used that Arachnus firewall. Shut up. I know some of you use other stuff when you can't sell your primary. I've seen those trend nets out there. I've seen those black router boards or whatever. I've seen some of that stuff out there. This wasn't a managed client. I wasn't going to force them to be on my tier. If this project had gone as good as it should have been, I'd have had everything installed and I'd have been on my way. Although it does make me think. I've only used one other Arachnus firewall. It went well as far as I know. So I don't know. But needless to say, it was not DNS. So I probably did leave more stuff out of that story, but I figured this was the one time I would tell you the whole process all the way through. And like I said, you can laugh, you can judge, but I know some of you have been there and some of you have done exactly what I've done. And you probably did not get to the resolution like I did, where it's like, we reset the firewall. I'd already reset the server. I'd already done all that stuff. And quite interesting. Can't believe I had to reset a firewall. I have not done that. Well, let me rephrase that. I have had to reset a firewall, but only because we did not know the password of the client. But this is the first time that I've actually had to reset a firewall because of non-responsive browsing your internet. So I do thank you for that. How dare you not blame it on DNS? I tried hard to blame it on DNS because it was DNS the last time. Just didn't happen to be DNS this time. So that is my story. I'm sticking to it. And probably in another month, I'll be done with this client and can move on. I will probably be finishing up that 365 migration about the same time. So that should be good. Let's do this. Let me go ahead and I'm going to throw up some graphics here. If you're watching the live stream or the video after the fact, there is our NetAlly sponsor and their website, netally.com. I'm going to also say what I would prefer you to do is head over to the website and click on our sponsors tab and use the links on the website, because that's how we can track if people are actually going to these sponsors by way of my podcast. Kind of helps me, stroke them and say, yes, see, I'm referring you business, and NetAlly is one of those. I mentioned last week, LionGuard is now a sponsor. They are an equipment gear sponsor, so they are helping me to upgrade some of the stuff I have to bring you better shows, especially when we're on the road. If I can get that camera figured out, that would be great. So LionGuard, protect the attack surface. BVoIP, and I don't know why it says attack the surface there, because that's not what they do, but they provide an excellent one-stream VoIP service. I don't use it, but I hear good things about it. And I like George Bardisi, good man, good client. I mean, not client, good man, good vendor, does good things in there. What I do not have is a logo yet for a partner that has come back for this year, TrueGrid. So I should let you guys know that TrueGrid, if you need secure remote access, and if all your people need to do is get to a terminal server or RDS, or if they need to remote into their desktops because they still have desktops in the office, if you've got an on-site Active Directory or you've got everybody connected through Azure, either way, you can connect them with TrueGrid. And TrueGrid has come in handy for me for this very reason. We had a law firm that wanted to be secure. And of course, now all of the products out there are SASE based, where, as far as I know, all SASE products, you have to install a client on the end user device. If it's a corporate device, no big deal. Customers can't complain. But for a client or customer that they're allowing end users to use their own home machines or their own laptops, but they don't want you touching their stuff, they don't want you to have to install those clients, TrueGrid is great for that, because all you need to do is give them a link to the site, they download their own client, they install it themselves, you've configured everything on your end, you configure the computer membership, the user membership and Active Directory, you assign their resources, and it's got built-in multi-factor authentication. So you're not having to, add on a Duo, although if you do have to add on Duo, great product. I don't want to say anything bad about them, but it's built in. You don't have to monitor two separate products. TrueGrid is simply all in one there. So they are back, and we'll have them on the show again. We've had LionGuard on the show, and George Bardisi was on for BVoIP. And then when I go to ASCII Edge next week, we're going to see our good boys from Rhythms, and we'll have my internet in a box and see how that goes. think I want a new box. Oops. Steve, Leonard, if you're listening, that thing's big. I want a small box. See how that goes. And then, of course, if you really want to support the show, if you think that I have provided you some value in helping you with your business, if you think that I have entertained you with my stories that you mock me with, support the show. You can do that by going to the support link on the website and signing up through Ko-Fi, or the easiest thing to do, click on the Amazon link, save it as one of your starting links for the internet, go there and shop on Amazon as you normally would, and we get a commission. Sometimes it's 2%, sometimes it's 3%. Not a lot of money, but it adds up, and you don't pay any difference in pricing, but you go to help me and the show. I appreciate that. All right, so at this point in the show, it is time for Florida Man, and tonight it will not be Florida Man versus the world, and it will not be any more recapping of the Florida Man games, although I will be back there next year, so be looking forward to that. And are you kidding me? I don't have the Florida Man story with me. How is that possible? All right. So here we are live on a show that I did not prepare for properly. So I am going to pull up real quick this week's Florida Man story. And it is this. A man is recovering after having his ear ripped off during an altercation that turned violent on a Florida beach during spring break. This incident occurred on Fort Myers Beach, Florida, resulting in a man's ear being bitten off. The altercation took place on Monday, March 17th, around 5 p.m. during the St. Patrick's Day celebrations. 18-year-old Jack Turner, and I'm being very emphatic when I say that, there is his picture from the Lee County Sheriff's Office, his mugshot. So 18-year-old Jack Turner was arrested and faces felony battery charges for allegedly attacking an acquaintance on the beach. According to witnesses and video evidence, Turner reportedly hurled racial epithets at the victim before attacking him from behind. So the police report describes the incident as Turner tackled the victim to the ground. He punched the back of the victim's head with a clenched fist. He grasped the victim's hair and forced his head into the sand. He then lifted the victim's head and bit his ear, causing a traumatic auricular amputation. And that is the phrase that made me want to read this story. Traumatic auricular amputation. The unidentified victim is currently receiving medical care and consulting a specialist for his injuries. And in response to this incident, Lee County Sheriff Carmine Marcino emphasized their zero tolerance for violence of any kind on the beach and announced that more deputies will be deployed to patrol Fort Myers Beach to ensure safety. So there you have it, folks. The only thing is it doesn't say if Jack Turner is actually a Florida man or if he is here from another state. And if I do find out he's from another state, I will find out that state and mock you for sending that kind of nonsense down here. We Florida men can take care of stuff on our own. So that is it. There will be no rebuttal. Let's see what else is going on here. I've already told you ASCII Edge I'll be attending next week. So there will be no live show next Wednesday night. But I will have shows coming out. I've got a couple that I'm audio recording, so there will be shows. And then, of course, I'll be recording shows at ASCII while we're in Orlando. So those will be coming out afterwards. I told you about PackSafe Beyond. We are there. By the way, this is my checklist for a 2012 to 2022 migration, network migration. So I had put that up there hoping I would go through all the steps to let you know where I was. But of course I didn't use it. So there we go. That's going to do it for our show tonight. I hope that you enjoyed Story Time with Uncle Marv, and we'll have more of those. It'll be great. But thank you very much. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks on the live show. You will see me through video recordings that I do while at ASCII. You'll hear me on audio. Always follow on your favorite podcatcher or on social media, itbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you for those that were here, and thank you for not mocking me in my It's Not DNS episode. We'll see you soon, folks. And until next time, holla.